Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners wrap up their 2023 spring game. The fellas have some takes, and my first immediate take from that spring game is that is how I expect a Brent Venables front seven and defense as a whole to be playing. I mean, there were guys flying around, making plays, getting behind the line of scrimmage, turning the ball over. That was something that we kind of were so excited for in the 2022 season. I think we're going to see that in a much bigger way in the 2023 season. I was extremely impressed with a ton of guys on the defensive side of the ball. Now, before we get into it again, just want to say thank you to you guys, especially the Sooner fans. Like, the support you guys have shown while we talk Oklahoma football truly means a lot. You guys have been so engaged. So, again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We've been talking a lot about the recruiting. They had a massive recruiting this weekend. Obviously, Jaden Hardy committing, and can't thank you guys enough for locking in. And again, it's going to be a busy recruiting month in the next couple of weeks. So lock in if you do enjoy it, Dell. I'm going to kick it off to you here, though. I want to start on the defense. We normally wrap up spring games talking about the offense and how the offense looked. I thought the defense stole the show here.
And that's the thing. Like last year, I think all of us, especially us two, we were very much Brent Venables come in.
Oh, yeah.
Change the whole thing immediately, win a national title year one kind of thing. But naturally, like the changes he needed to make from what Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch were putting on that field and the personnel they'd recruited to what he needs to do to win football games and be the defense he wants to be were just like massive. And it looks like he's doing that, especially up front. That's where I thought they really shined a guy like Isaiah Koa, not a ton of attention, but he looked really dominant today. Grayson Halton, a young player, really stepped up. And that's kind of what you want to see. Those guys who are Brent Venables guys play the way that Brent Venables wants guys to play.
And it's a laundry list of guys. Isaiah Cole, Grayson Hall, and I thought Jordan Kelly looked extremely good. And then on the edge, like Rondell Bothroyd's a guy that we talked about when he transferred to Oklahoma as a Wake Forest graduate. Like, I've watched a lot of Rondell Bothroyd when a lot of people don't talk about Wake Forest football. Rondell Bothroyd's former first-team All-ACC dude. That dude is a guy. Like, he has heavy hands, and that's the most impressive thing is, I mean, the pockets were just getting collapsed. Like, you have a bunch of guys who, you have some speed guys. Adibari looked extremely fast to win, like with bursts around the edge. But I was most impressed with there was very little clean pockets. So you got some guys with some big time firepower in their hands, and they were just kind of walking offensive linemen back into the lap of the quarterback.
And that's how Brent Venables, most of his D linemen were. Like, those Clemson D linemen were just big, heavy players. And you look at that front four for them, or what's probably going to end up being the front four with Bothroyd and Ethan Downs as probably the two starting DNs. Those are really physical defensive ends. Yep. And again, you do have the guys behind them. I thought Mason Thomas, in addition to Adibari, like those two look like they have more of that. I don't want to say classic, but that bend, that
burst and bend, yeah.
And that's what those two bring. So you got a versatile group. You got guys who, again, you got the Rondell Bothroyds of the world who are really physical, and then you do have Adibari, who I think is going to get his burn early in his career, and a guy like Mason Thomas, another guy you wouldn't have necessarily expected a ton from, but they look like they're going to add something. So you do have a versatile defensive line who again, I just think is going to be way more disruptive this year than it was last year.
And behind the offense, they're a defensive line. Like, these guys were flying around making plays. Danny Stutzman, like, you knew he's a dog. Like, we all knew that. Jaren Kanak, I thought looked really good. Kip Lewis, I thought looked really good. You have some linebackers who can cover a lot of ground. And again, we talk about this trend a lot. When you have a defensive line that's letting play linebackers kind of play clean, you saw that at Georgia with guys like N'Kobe Dean and Channing Tindall. When you don't have like offensive guards, centers, tackles working up to linebackers, you really give those linebackers the ability to be playmakers. Guys like Danny Stutzman, Jaren Kanak, those guys are the epitome of guys who can make playmakers. And then the last guy I want to talk about, Sam McCullough.
Yeah, he stole the show. He was so good today. I mean, in what I also wanted to add is, like, they're just hitting people like in the way you like kind of see. I mean, Deshaun McCullough was flying around hammering players. Reggie Pearson from the safety spot. As a Michigan fan, you saw him really. I mean, one of the most vicious hitters I frankly ever seen play college football. Like, at that, when he was at Wisconsin and before he got hurt and ended up transferring and now ends up at Oklahoma. He's a wildly physical player, and that's another dimension of what I think they were missing, especially in the back end, is some intimidating players who who can really, really rock guys.
And it's also like the physicality. Like this defense looks much more physical, much more sure tackling than it did last year. And like going back and circling to a guy like Deshaun McCullough, who is gonna be such an impact player on this defense because you can do so much with him. He's a guy who had 4.5, 5 sacks last year as a true freshman at Indiana. He's very good in space. He's a guy that goes sideline to sideline, can cover people out of the backfield. I'm extremely excited to see the different ways BV and this defensive coaching staff use a guy like Deshaun McCullough and Peyton Bowen. Like I know you got your starters in Billy Bowman, Reggie Pearson, but Peyton Bowen, he's gonna find his way onto the football field as a true freshman, 100%.
And in that, again, you saw the young guys across the board playing really well, but you also do have a fair amount of experience coming back. I mean, Woody Washington been there for a while, and if he can continue to kind of develop into that guy and be a shutdown corner, and obviously a guy like Gentry Williams, a little younger, but really, really talented. It's, again, I think that this defense maybe, and it may still be a year away from being like that really dominant, like
didn't look like it today.
No, and I mean for sure, and it is spring games. I do think that inherently favors the defense.
True.
But like you do see the bone, like kind of the development you wanted to see from Venables, and I think what's especially noteworthy is just how good the young guys play now and how much different they look than maybe what you've seen in the past at Oklahoma, where it was just a much more passive group. I mean, yeah, you talked Deshaun McCullough type player, Reggie Pearson.
More important is who are these guys? Like they're Brent Venables guys. Like and it's notable kind of who are the guys that were brought in by BV and how they've been in the room with BV because like these guys are playing downhill and they're making plays. Now the one thing I will say before we move to the offense is they got to get a little bit more disciplined, like with the right eyes. The only time the offense was really making plays on the defense is blown assignments. And so that was something that they struggled with in 2022. I expect it to clean up, but the bones of this defense, night and day difference from what you saw in 2022. Now, I want to move over to the offensive side of the ball, and I talk a little bit about this quarterback room. That's kind of the story of the offseason. I love how it shakes out, right? You have Dylan Gabriel as the last year guy and Jackson Arnold, the young 5-star who's going to learn behind him. I love it. I think Dylan Gabriel is very capable of winning a Big 12 championship for Oklahoma, and Jackson Arnold's going to learn. Like Jackson Arnold today, you see the arm talent. You see why he was the 8th best player nationally coming out of high school. But you also see that he's still a high school kid that's playing college football. He has the arm talent. I think he needs to get the ball out quicker, go through his reads a little bit better. And there's no more experienced guy to do that than Dylan Gabriel.
And it was nice to see him settle in, speaking of Arnold, towards the end, because that last drive he executed was really, really good. You saw Angelo Anthony start to get loose a little bit. That last throw to number 82 was just one. I mean, that's the type of throw you brought Jackson Arnold in to make. I mean, those are in a big spot. And of course, it is a spring game, so how big can the spot be? But it's his first real college action. So in his world, it is probably a huge spot. And to step up, make that play at the end of the game, that's like what you do see something from Arnold. Like you're very excited moving forward. And I agree with you. It is Gabriel's team for now, and he is just a steady hand. Again, he's not the Arnold type talent that he's going to win a lot of games on his own, but like with what Oklahoma has, I think this is a really good spot for them. Like, yeah, let Gabriel kind of play this last year out, and then it's Arnold's turn. And I mean, Arnold's going to have a lot of talent, and he's going to bring a new dynamic to what they can do on offense.
Now, the one thing I think Oklahoma still needs to work on is I think losing a guy like Marvin Mims hurts. I need to see some wide receivers step up. And there's some guys that we feel good about, right? Jaleel Farouk's a guy that we've been talking about for a while. I think he's going to step up. Jaden Gibson's another guy we're excited about. Drake Stoops is obviously the steady Eddie. I wonder if Oklahoma goes to the transfer portal in this small window that's opened up to get another body in. I think Angelo Anthony was you as Michigan fans, like we were extremely excited about Angelo Anthony as a true freshman. Like he is a very, very clean mover. He's not the biggest, not the fastest, but he's going to get open. I'm excited to see how he develops kind of in the summer and into fall camp. I wonder if the Sooners team wants to add another wide receiver because I do think there can be some more playmakers on the outside to help a guy like Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, and that's just they're fairly young for the most part at that. Not young at necessarily wide out as a whole, but in terms of that number one guy, they're
Yeah,
the guys who
100%.
are maybe going to be the number one guy are for the most part younger guys like a Jaden Gibson or a Nick Anderson type player. Like those guys are really young in their careers. And yes, I mean, it's an attractive place to go play wide receiver. I think if you're like
Yeah.
a senior type guy and you're coming off like, I don't know, a team like Florida. I saw that one of their top wideouts just hit the portal as we were doing this, but kind of a guy from that type of team who's looking for a place where they're going to be a really good offense, I think, and win a lot of football games and play meaningful football. It feels like an attractive destination because you're right. They probably do need that one more kind of top wideout to kind of round out this team and make them really competitive in the Big 12 and nationally.
Xavier Henderson hitting the portal. Can't go back to the SEC. Oklahoma used that last year, the Big 12, and make it happen. I mean, I'm interested to see the wide receivers that emerge from the portal. But I think Brent Venables did a phenomenal job in January adding guys in the portal, a guy like Walter Rouse, Rondo Bothroyd, really excited about those guys. But if there is a position that you're saying, okay, I would like to see Oklahoma address, it is another playmaker on the outside.
You probably aren't really looking anywhere else because everything else is pretty loaded. I mean, the offensive line we saw in that bowl game, you saw guys like Guyton step up, play really good football, and I think you're pretty confident in what they have. And obviously adding a guy like Walter Rouse, who's going to be a really sure kind of fire left tackle or wherever he ends up playing, he's going to be really good at what he does. So I think you're pretty set.
Oh, yeah.
In across the board. So I do feel like it's not like I expect Oklahoma to add 13 transfers.
No, this is a complete team. Just a wide receiver. Now, to close out, I do want to talk about the recruiting implications of the spring game. One, we talked about this very similarly to Nebraska. Like, this is one of the programs where these guys coming on campus, and we'll give you the names in a second, this is their first time. Like, they won't get that kind of experience from the fans anywhere else. So when you're a Sooner and you're recruiting these guys out of high school, that's like what you're selling is you want to go play for a program like Norman that's going to almost sell out a spring game. And you know you're going to be rolling into one of the more electric environments in the fall in college football. And you take a look at the guys. You had Jaden Hardy commit this morning. David Stone on campus. I would think Oklahoma has the inside track there. Brian Wisco, another wide receiver that is just an absolute flyer. Nigel Smith, Caden Durham. They had a ton of guys on campus, and soon the Sooners have been kind of maybe a slow start in the 2024 class in terms of commitments, but not very slow in getting traction with these recruits. Like they've had a lot of talent on campus. They're crystal balled for a lot of top 200 guys. I expect it to be a very exciting month after a lot of these guys got to experience what it's like at an Oklahoma game and spring game. So lock into that if you guys are
in those legends who are there. I mean, you look across the board, like all the guys come back, and Bob Stoops and the likes of
Kyler Murray, Baker.
They're top guys. Like they show up and they're always around. It feels like every spring game, all of them are back.
Also, shout out Gerald McCoy. He's tweeting at David Stone. When are you going to get an all-pro former NFL player recruiting some of the best players? Like that's just what Oklahoma is about, and I no doubt is one of the more influential voices in David Stone's head in terms of come to Oklahoma. You have a guy in Gerald McCoy who's done everything you need to do in football, trying to tell you to go play for his alma mater. That's extremely exciting. It's going to be a very fun next couple of weeks and months for Oklahoma on the recruiting show. So I do expect some commitments to come falling. So again, if you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. You know we talk a lot of Oklahoma recruiting because they're always getting it done on the trail. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.